this is you. Yes.
What happened? No, it's okay.
It's fine.
Just
yep.
slow.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Oh, we jumped. Is it switching automatically? No. Let's do full screen, but not slideshow. Okay. Hi, my name is Mateusz Kuzak, and I will be presenting the work that we're doing in Elixir on improving the research software and the practices we're working on. But all the work that I'm going to present, it's work of many, many people involved in that. I'm like one of the people who are contributing to the project. So keep it in mind, it's not my work, it's a lot of fantastic people contributing, and not only in Elixir. So Salva already gave an introduction to Elixir, so fortunately I don't have to do that. But I will only mention that the work that is done here, part of the work has been done in collaboration between the training platform and tools platform. So we're combining like the things that are necessary in tools with the expertise and skills in the training platform, people who know how to train people. And you'll learn later why it is the case. So the initiative started a few years ago. The idea was to start a group of people who will look into how we can improve the quality of research software and introduce best practices in research software in Elixir. And the software development best practices working group has been initiated with the idea that if we, from the start, encourage development of software in the open, so if everyone who starts developing software, they will do it in the open, on GitHub, with everyone being able to look at it, contribute to it, it will hopefully lead to better software in the end, because there will be more people who can see, contribute, comment, and also there will be a little bit of pressure because you know that people are looking at it and you will pay more attention to your work. But then we realized, no, I'll get to that. But so first we started thinking about how do we like what kind of best practices we want to encourage, and also how do we measure that. And we have developed, we have the first meeting at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam 3 years ago, I think. And we started working on the metrics to measure best practices in life science research software. But then we also thought, like 10 things is a lot, so let's start with a little more, like less intimidating things. So we developed 4 simple recommendations for researchers. So it's not like advanced, very skilled RSEs or research software engineers. It's the researchers who are developing software, and we want to help them to develop it better with incorporating good practices. But the programming itself, it's like they're usually people who learned programming themselves, so they're very intimidating by other people looking at their code. So we thought about like, and also they don't know what it takes, like what are the consequences of developing software in the open, consequences that people are looking at it, and people may want to contribute. So we developed those 4 simple recommendations. I will explain them in more detail. But so the first thing that we realized, people are very much afraid of making it open source because the other people will start looking at their code. They will maybe comment on their code. Maybe they won't like their code. Maybe if the researchers, they're often afraid that they're going to get scooped. Yeah, someone will take their idea and do something with it and publish it before they manage to publish it. What if people want to get support and you don't have resources to give support for software? Yeah. So along with the 4 recommendations, we actually compiled the long list of things, long list of fears of open sourcing research software, and then how do we address those fears? So how do we help researchers to overcome it? So we have developed those 4 recommendations. We have published them. You can find the recommendations with more explanation on the website. There's URL at the top, but I will quickly walk through them. So first of all, make the code open from day one. And there's a reason why it's from day one. And I think this is a bit controversial. So some people say it's too much overhead, like if you don't even know what's going to happen with the code. But actually, if you're talking about the fears of open sourcing, if you're putting on GitHub empty README file, there are no fears. Yeah, there's nothing that people can comment. There's nothing to not like about it. It's an empty README file, and then you will slowly add things, and you see that like the word is still out there. Nothing's changed. Like no one is attacking you. You can continue, and you keep adding, and you actually see that it's not that scary, and you can get used to it. Yeah. So I think this is a good way to start doing it with the empty file, and then make it discoverable. Because if you have software that no one can find, that's not very useful. I mean, it's still useful for you, but so we want people to deposit the software in some place that it can be found. But of course, you need a license because no one can use your software if there is no license. And this is also something that we've learned that a lot of people don't know about. And they think that if they put the code on GitHub, people can use it even there is no license. So we also address that. We also want to, like, this is project in the open, so you also have to take care of how do you want to interact with the community and how people can, like, from the community can contact you, how they can give the feedback. So you should describe that. And that's usually what people are not aware of, because they're used to developing tools that never see the light of the day, so no one is going to actually try to interact with them. Yeah? So in summary, we think that like improving or like applying those best practices will lead to better quality of the software and better sustainability in the long run, and in the end we have better science. Yeah, so that's what we want in the end. And then we also want to incentivize researchers to do it, to apply, to implement those best practices. So we want to be able to measure those and somehow display. So we're also working together with Salva, with OpenEbench. How do we measure those best practices that are applied to the software and like display them prominently on the websites? That's for 2 reasons. So one is to give credit to the researchers that they put effort in it and then that is visible, but also for others to see how good the software is. What are the, like, is there documentation? Is there a license? These kind of things. So then we realized, like, we have those guidelines, but actually no one will do it probably because people don't know how to do it. So we have teamed up with the training platform and with the carpentries, and we have developed the lessons to teach around those 4 recommendations. So we did a series of online and face-to-face events, and I think within the year, we have developed the lessons. So we found out that it's very useful to have some face-to-face sprints with like really doing a lot of work together, but also we need those intermediate online sprints to polish the lessons. And we have released the lesson beginning this year sometime. I will show the link. Yeah, so this is the link to the lesson. We're using the carpentries templates. We don't want to reinvent anything, so we're reusing as much as possible. We're using the carpentries lesson template and workshop templates. You can find the lesson there. If you find any problems, the lesson is developed like software, so you can, if you find some issues, you can make issue or you can make a pull request, even better, because then we can just review it and integrate it in the lesson. Or you can also make comments. So these are people like in the core team that have been developed the lesson. But as I said, there were many, many more people who contributed, and we were very thankful for that. And after this, we continue working. How can we improve? And of course, FAIR is now very popular acronym that you can hear everywhere. So we're thinking about how FAIR applies to research software, and you heard from Salva a little bit about it. We joined the Library Carpentry Global Sprint to work on top 10 things that you can do to improve the fairness of the software. So if you're interested in it, so we published it together with the other library carpentry resources, which are like you can learn top 10 things for oceanography data, but we did for research software. You can, if you follow the QR code, you go to the whole library carpentry top 10 things, but you can also see our poster at the poster session, P14, free. And you can also download the poster from the website. So what's next? We actually now have the working group in Elixir to continue with this work, but more in implementation in Elixir. So far we've published those recommendations and metrics. We have the training materials. We actually started teaching the workshops. We had 2 first workshops, one in Hand and one in Athens last week. And we're also taking this opportunity, so we actually take a little bit more time. We teach the workshop, and then we have some time to get feedback from the people who are participating on what worked, what didn't work in the workshop, and we're trying to improve the lessons. And the next step we want to, as I said, so we need to focus on the measuring the quality. So in the end, we want to improve the quality, reuse, and sustainability. Okay. So we need the guidelines. We already started the training and promotion. I think we need more guidelines once we get also more content and more, for example, how to make software fair, more detailed descriptions. We're working on software management plans, so we want to make it easier for people to think about how they're going to manage software in the projects, and also tell the managers what they should be looking at in order to evaluate how well the software is managed in the project. Yeah? And yeah, and we want to measure, recognize, and visualize those things. If you want to help us, we want to work in the upcoming sprint, so that tomorrow and day after tomorrow, on software citations, how we can improve software citations, how can we incentivize that, how can we facilitate that, and we'll be also continuing this work at the eLife Innovation Sprint. And I think that's it, yeah. What questions do you have? We do have questions. You want to?
Yeah, I'm going to do it here. We do have some questions from the floor online. Guy is asking, do you have a plan to support people who actually do get attacked for their code on GitHub?
It's a hard question. Yeah, we need a code of conduct. I don't know, so I don't know of Elixir code of conduct like in the digital space. That's the first thing. But then we also need like a group of people who actually work. No, we're not prepared for that, I have to say. But that's something definitely very important, so we have to figure it out. But there is already, I'm happy that there's so much going on now in different communities, so we can learn a lot from others. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep doing this. We have another question. Do you have recommendations for sustainable funding of OSS?
No.
They figured they'd give it a try.
Yeah, no, so yeah, the title of the talk is Towards Sustainable or Sustainability in Research Software. I think we actually, when we were working on the software management plans, we realized that we very often end up talking about two things, which is software reusability and software sustainability or long-term sustainability. And we focused on reusability at the moment. The sustainability, so I used to work in Netherlands eScience Center, and our way to approach software sustainability was to try, so if we make sure that we develop software that it has more potential to being reused, there is more chance that you will get funding for different projects where you can reuse this software, yeah? But there is definitely a need, like if there is crucial software for science, I'm happy there are some initiatives to fund this project, but definitely there is not enough, yeah? But projects like SciPy or Bioconductor, they definitely need like different level of funding, yeah? This is the essential for science, but no.
Remember, you can also walk to the mic if you have another question. We have a question from Hervé. It says, Mateusz, have you considered developing recommendations for, quote, senior engineers or managers to help, quote, beginner engineers overcome the, quote, fear of open sourcing?
Yeah.
The top one.
Yeah. So I think if the senior engineer believe in open source and they're not afraid, I think they can communicate it to the junior engineer. So they should mentor them, and I think they should be a good example. If there are senior engineers that don't believe in that, that's very hard. But I think having examples from other senior engineers, we need people. We need more role models, basically. Yeah, we need more people who give good examples. So I always try to show this is how other people develop software in the open. Yeah, there are some good examples of open science and open source development. So yeah. I think that's usually, yeah, the mentoring is very important here. But if the senior manager doesn't really believe in that, maybe that's too late to change their mind, yeah.
We still have time for one more question. What do you say to people who have fear
Sure.
of getting scooped?
Yeah, so there is no, so the real life examples show that people don't get scooped. And actually they show that if you publish early, you will be recognized for it early. So if you wait longer, you probably more likely be being scooped because of that, because you waited instead of putting it out there. So because if you put it out there, people will know this is your work, you're less likely to be scooped. The great example that of course it will depend how known you are. But the great example I have is Titus Brown, who he publishes his grant proposals before he submits them. You can find them on GitHub. Haven't been scooped yet, so. Yeah.
And this is a comment, not a question, but Anonymous said that Jason Williams and Rob Davey are working on training for senior managers, I think.
The open science, is it about the open science workshop that is upcoming? Yeah. I'm co-developing with them, yeah. So we're contributing to it, yeah. Salva.
We still have time for questions? To the mic, please. Thank you.
It should be, yeah.
Coming back to the question of the senior engineers promoting open source and so on, are you aware of, or do you have a catalog, or you might think of a catalog, where you have institutions that promote open source and so on? Because it may be institutional, saying, well, guys, whatever you develop has to be in a repo from day one and so on and so forth.
It is institutional, and what I see is very often like young researchers actually want to do it, but they're kind of blocked by the upper management or their PIs and so on. So no, we don't have the list. Yeah.
Perhaps it's something that we can discuss in Elixir.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Maybe we can make a list, and then people can make pull requests and add to the list the institutions that they with the best practices with open sourcing. No, so one example is eScience Center where I used to work. The default was open source license. So every project had to be open source from the day one, unless there was very, very, very good reason that it wasn't. And there were, I think, in total 2 projects that wasn't because there were some collaboration with the industry. Yeah.
So we still have about 2 more minutes. Or one
Right.
question?
So one of the recommendations that you suggested for our open source project is to publish them in repositories. One of them is Biota Tools, which is it's developed by Elixir, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So Biota Tools right now has 12,500 tools. So I think there is a tool noise in there. So I would like to hear some recommendation of how to make my tool stand out, or yeah, you know.
Apply best practices. We're going to have metrics, and we're going to visualize it so that it will be more visible. No, but seriously, it's more about metadata. So part of the things that we're teaching about how do you annotate your software with proper metadata. So for bioinformatics, you can use EDAM ontology. You can annotate it. You can say for what purpose this software can be used. And then we're also working with this bioschemas group on tools profile in bioschemas, so that people can describe the tools. So we want to make sure that all the things that we think should be there, for example, there should be a DOI for the release of the software, there should be license, and those things should be in metadata, and that should help with better search.
Right.
Even if you don't register it in Biota Tools, hopefully search engines like Google will index it. Yeah.
You have 55 seconds.
I probably count as manager managing software development projects, and we've been doing development for the last 20 years, open source, open data. And whenever open comes up, there's almost as a word pair, the scooping fear, as we've discussed here. I have not yet heard a single story where it actually happened, but I think it would be worth probably to do a kind of survey in a largish community like here to say, we did a survey, we ask for concrete stories of where have you been scooped because you have done something open, and then we would probably have a concrete answer. And I think this would be something good to do for both software and data, because it always comes up, but I've never heard a real story.
Yeah. No, so, yeah, I think we need, also I was thinking in the same way, so in the data community there was the idea of the data parasite, yeah, so the people who reuse other people's data instead of generating their own data. Maybe we need like a software parasite, people who reuse software instead of developing another piece of software that probably does the same. But yeah.
Thank you very much. We now have Julien to talk about the Kipoi repository.